Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Tiana here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Super Monkey Ball Sakura Edition for some mobile phone devices, ranging from iOS from the likes of Apple iPhones, as well as Samsung for the sake of Android phones, and you pretty much named the rest of it. So, last time, we essentially did manage to fully complete Sinking Swamp, and as far as the actual performance itself is concerned, we did that well. It's pretty alright. Even though sometimes though about the fact that stage 6 might able to throw me off a bit, especially when you're trying to go after every single bananas onto that particular stage. But apart from those aside things though, yeah, it's not too shabby for the most part. So today, for this video, is that we're going to be continuing things on and move on to the next world in this game. That's what appears to be Cobalt Caverns, which is filled to the brim with mushrooms, and you pretty much know the idea about this environment is going to take place because, well, as far as I'm aware, that this world is obviously based off from World 6 from Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz, including the HD counterpart as well. However though, unlike the HD version, thankfully though, we've got the original soundtrack yet again. Now, as far as I do notice, it's about the fact that the remix of this particular music is actually originated from Studio One, based off from Super Monkey Ball Touch and Roll, because I definitely noticed about the fact that someone sent a comment back in during the Evolves event sometime in, I would say since 2020 for some time, when I believe we actually did already done Super Monkey Ball Touch and Roll, despite the fact that the frame rate is actually really horrible, especially concerning for the fact that the only method we're able to actually play it on is emulator, which as a result though, yeah, it just feels rather janky for the most part when it comes to frame rates and everything. So even though it still looks pretty good even to this day, but I digress. So anyways though, and as you can see on screen, the character choice for this world this time, and that's what it appears to be for the fact that we are actually going to be playing as Gongon. So, and as a result though, is about the fact that he's basically a powerhouse monkey. So as a result though, we can pretty much expect able to notice at this point. So anyway, so yeah, not much else is going on, I'm afraid, apart from the fact that, well, today's date, of course, there is the 29th of December today, in some cases in 2024 today. Only 3 more days to go until we're about to be approaching on to 2025. And so much so for the fact that I'm pretty sure we've only got about, I would say, 18 more days to go until Donkey Kong Country Returns HD is going to be releasing on the Nintendo Switch, and so much so for the fact that we still have no idea of when does the Metroid Prime 4 Beyond we're able to actually get the release date yet. But I'm sure enough though, we'll find out more about it later on, especially concerning for the fact that obviously though, like I stated before, we've only got 3 more days left until we're about to be approaching on to 2025, and so much so for the fact that we've got 2 more days left until we're about to be approaching on to the final day of 2024. And so much so, actually though, is about the fact that I'm pretty sure it's now possible to believe about the fact that technically speaking though, we're now on to the halfway point of this game already, especially concerning for the fact that there's actually more to it than that, which as a result though, we'll explain more about that until approximately about 2 days time as far as I'm concerned. So anyways though, now as far as any other discussions, I would like to point things out right away. Unfortunately though, there's nothing right to home about in regards to the forms of what's been happening recently. I mean, obviously though, let's get into the forms of the most important topic about today. That's what appears to be for the fact that, remember when I mentioned this about the forms of how the fact that certain films I did manage to went to see throughout the films this whole entire year of 2024. Unfortunately though, I've never actually experienced all of those films in particular, because most of them we tend to skip over for the sake of the films of how, well, one of those films in particular, which appears to be Mufasa the Lion King, for example, that I seemed able to can't be bothered able to see that film on a big screen, just because I'm so sick and tired of the films of Disney live-action movies kind of scenario again. Especially concerning for the fact that what I've also realized about the fact that out of nowhere, the Snow White's new trailer, specifically the live-action movie version, has also received a lot of dislikes recently, especially concerning for the fact that a lot of backlash still applies, and not to mention though is about the fact that the CGI on those dwarfs are pretty horrendous, and is absolutely like monstrosity bad. When it comes to likely for its design, it almost reminds me of the forms of a prototype of the forms of the Polar Express in terms of visual style, except the fact that it's not going to be a winter-inspired kind of film to it than that. So, relatively speaking though, I'm miles able to actually wait and see what happens once that particular film decides to release. Now, I'm sure enough though is about the fact that a lot of reviewers out there were able to despise the Snow White live-action remake, especially concerning for the fact that it's even bad enough we're about to be getting, I would classify for saying like 2 of them for the sake of next year. I mean, Lilo and Stitch looks kind of promising, but I wouldn't expect able to actually give my high hopes for it, especially concerning for the fact that unlike the original animated counterparts, you know, in 2D animation, that while looking back on it though, since 2002, that I still think that Lilo and Stitch is an awesome movie back in 2002. So relatively speaking, I was about the fact that, as I stated earlier, I have I do have some low expectations for the sake of the live-action remake of the forms of both of those films entirely for 2025. Although, the only thing it's worth noting for this honorable mentions, and that's of course How to Train Your Dragon, especially concerning for the fact that that film has been made by DreamWorks. So, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that again, we shall wait and see what happens as soon as that particular reviews have been up for those particular live-action movies, for not only for Disney, but as well as the forms of some DreamWorks stuff here and there as well. So either way though, chances are though, again, we'll have to wait and see. So, but I digress. So there's also another thing else that's worth noting for is about the fact that I was able to double check on certain several websites in regards to the forms of, I don't know if Wallace and Gromit Vengeance Most Foul is expected to be confirmed for its DVD/Blu-ray release, but I did manage to double check in during forms of other websites ranging from Agent B, Amazon, and nothing happened. So because of that though, my guess is going to be only exclusive to BBC iPlayer from now on, especially concerning for the fact that I do also realize about the fact that with the opening credits sequence, it does manage to able to say the word called like Netflix and stuff like that. So relatively speaking though, it feels kind of similar to the forms of how it does it for the likes of the original Chicken Run, where basically though the European version, or specifically the UK version, did manage to say Paffy at first, and then eventually at some point they also mentioned DreamWorks Pictures, and after that though they show us an Armin text. So yeah, and unlike the forms of how it does on the American version, where it did say DreamWorks Pictures first and then Paffy afterwards. So yeah, I get the strong feeling it might do the same thing for Wallace and Gromit Vengeance Most Foul, specifically in the North American version or just American versions in general, because I already know for the fact that I'm pretty sure that in that specific region that they've only got about, I would classify for saying for about I don't know, like 5 days left or something like that until that particular film is going to be releasing on Netflix version. So yeah, that was as far as I can try to able to explain any of these stuff as far as this is concerned. So either way though, now as far as the forms of my films list, or specifically my film tier list that I somehow want able to try to mention about this, is that, well, obviously though, my favorite film in terms of the films of 2024 is obviously Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and second place goes to Inside Out 2, because Inside Out 2 was fantastic. And in addition to that though, third place goes to Wallace and Gromit Vengeance Most Foul, the most recent one. Number 4th place goes to Deadpool and Wolverine, and on top of all that stuff though, I believe 5th place goes to, well, I will have to admit though right away, I will admit though, I was a little bit slightly disappointed with Kung Fu Panda 4. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still found that film to be very, very fun to go through, but it's just about the fact that they're only missing, one of those important aspects in regards to the faults of one of those Kung Fu Panda films, and that's of course the Furious 5. So yeah, that might be my biased opinions, I guess, especially concerning for the fact that, well, it feels remarkably similar to the films of how it does it for Toy Story 4, where basically though it's about the fact that they seemed able to sideline most of those important characters throughout the franchise, as far as I'm usually concerned with. So, but I digress. So as you can see, yes indeed, we've somehow managed to unlock the next crown stage. So let's go and check this one out. And suffice to say, it may look like about the fact that we have to go through a lot of obstacles here and there, such as the forms of those little up and down walls that we have to able to try to hop onto to able to grab those bananas. So now, if you guys are probably wondering, whatever happens if you do manage to able to get every single crowns in each and every single stages, if you're probably wondering? Well, there is that one particular special award that if you do manage to able to accomplish something like this, well, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that it's probably best if we're able to mention more about it, probably at some point and during any forms have been a final day of 2024 before we move on to 2025. So anyway, so yeah, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. What specific films did you guys watch during the films have been 2024 on the big screen or theaters or cinemas for that matter? Because as far as I'm aware, I've only saw 5 films. Well, technically 6 if I want to count the second viewing of Sonic the Hedgehog 3. But if you don't want to count the second viewing, well, obviously that won't count. So as a result though, although I will say is about the fact that the worst film I ever saw during the films of this whole entire year, and that is of course one of the Netflix exclusive films, and that's what appears to be Saving Bikini Bottom, a Sandy Cheeks movie, alongside with the films of Megamind sequel, which appears to be Megamind versus the Doom Syndrome or Centigrade, because aside from the films of the graphics, yeah, those 2 films are definitely the worst. Well, in terms of 2024 lineup of films, as far as I can definitely tell from this point, now I won't say it applies with the films of Mufasa the Lion King, despite the fact I just don't care for that much, especially because like I stated before, I'm so sick and tired of the films of those live action Disney movies up to this point, because aside from all that stuff though, they really do mess up with the films of this entire nostalgia fan base, especially concerning for the fact that, well, it lacks any sort of charm, which is pretty understandable, and in addition to that though, it's nowhere near as colorful as what it used to be back in the 90s, because in the original The Lion King, including The Lion King 2 Simba's Pride, neither with the films of The Lion King 1.5, or technically, well, for whatever reason, the UK version for some reason calls it The Lion King 3, Hakuna Matata, despite the fact that it's not actually a sequel, but it's actually in a between-quill, just like the films of how it does it in Dream Productions, from the likes of Inside Out films, or Inside Out franchises, and same applies with the films of Knuckles the series, in regards to the films of in between both Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and Sonic the Hedgehog 3, but I digress. At the very least, with those 3 The Lion King movies, as I mentioned this earlier, are a lot more colorful and vibrant, thus it has a lot of expressions to top it off, and also the animation still looks really dang awesome even to this day, despite The Lion King 2 Simba's Pride does feel a bit rough around the edges for certain parts, but apart from those aside things though, is about the fact I just don't care about these live-action Disney movies anymore, because at this point in time, it's about the fact that most people start able to realize that they've almost running out of ideas in regards to the forms of remaking the beloved Disney classics, because at this point we somehow got, let's just say quite a number of them actually, like for instance that we've already got 2 different versions of The Jungle Book, ranging from 1994 to 2016 versions. In addition to that though, The Lion King 2019, which is pretty much a disappointment to me. And on top of that, we also got Aladdin, The Little Mermaid, and also same applies with the films of Mulan. I mean, at this point in time, it's about the fact that they've almost completely done in terms of remaking those Disney Renaissance movies into live-action adaptations. I mean, obviously though, it's about the fact I don't think it's possible they're trying to do The Rescuers Down Under, which for the love of God, Disney, don't ever do that, because I will admit though, I still really enjoy The Rescuers Down Under as it is, despite the fact that the box office for that film is pretty miserable, especially concerning for the fact that that was technically, it's like the first ever Disney sequel made by Walt Disney Company itself, not counting films of the direct-to-VHS or something like that, because that honor goes to The Return of Jafar, because that was actually technically the first ever sequel is being released by the sake of the films to try to be a part of the films of directed VHS sequels, so, or directed DVDs to be more specifically. So anyway, by the way, this particular bonus stage right there is actually very easy, especially concerning for the fact that if you try to tilt your iPhone and all that stuff as closely as you possibly could, well, hard for me to explain, because I already know for the fact that it's been about quite a few hours ago since I actually have last played this game for sure, because relatively speaking, I was about the fact that at this point in time that I've been busy playing for a lot of games on my spare own time, ranging from, oh jeez, I totally forgot about this part. We actually got ourselves this very peculiar moving staircases, so, but again, if I do end up messing up at one point, then I'm not able to restart the actual first run, or specifically I'm also able to restart the actual run. So hopefully we should be able to get those bananas here, and thankfully we somehow succeed, so everything else checks out there. So, but anyways, as I was saying about the films of how the fact that at this point in time, when it comes to Disney Renaissance era, it's almost gonna get remade, or remade rather, into its live-action adaptation. I don't think about the fact that, well, I don't know if they were able to do Pocahontas or The Hunchback of Notre Dame, or even Hercules and even Tarzan, because obviously though, I just don't really care about those live-action adaptations anymore. I mean, like I said before, it's because there's a lack of charm, and also they really do mess up without the entire nostalgia factor, so, well, that's just me. But, yeah, I do apologize if my commentary is a little bit slightly, iffy, because obviously though, in addition to trying to able to concentrate on this particular tilting my phone syndrome, but it's also about the fact that there's nothing right to home about at this point in time, especially concerning for the fact that at this point as well, that I will admit it though right away, the only disappointing aspects in terms of the gaming industry for 2024 to me though, is about the fact that we only got one general Nintendo Direct, and that's what appears to be at June, and then every once in a while we only come across into the majority of those Nintendo Directs based off from partner showcases, and I was a little bit meh about it. Well, apart from a few interesting announcements, during the films have been a partner showcases though, ranging from Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble, and there's also another ones I can probably think about as well, but I can't really think about on top of my head, aside from one of those games as I mentioned this earlier, and still we haven't exactly heard about any other news and updates in regards to the films of Hollow Knight Silksong, and relatively speaking now, that's as far as I can try to able to explain about the films of today's topic in terms of gaming related things. Well, unfortunately though, as you can definitely notice right from the start though, is about the fact that, well, oh jeez, I almost gonna fall off, but thankfully though we somehow managed able to succeed, so everything else checks out there, and I believe we've now got about a couple of stages left, so expecting about the fact that several stages can get pretty tricky if you're trying to go after every single bananas, if you hopefully, God forbid, not to fall off, because otherwise, you know, your banana counter will not spawn again, so yeah, everything else will be, oh jeez, that was close. But anyway though, aside from all that stuff though, there's nothing else I can talk about. I mean, relatively speaking though, again, it's probably best if we let Maxi will mention more about his final thoughts of 2024, especially concerning for the fact that, well, again, not long now until we're moving on to a new year now, so... Alright, so let's grab these bananas here, do it very carefully in case if we don't go towards the edge, which thankfully we somehow didn't, so nicely done. I'm quite surprised about the fact that we somehow managed able to tackle for those stages in the quickest way imaginable, which is especially noticeable concerning for the fact that unlike its very schizophrenic difficulty sometimes when it comes to other Super Monkey Ball games in the past, ranging from, let's just say, Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll, for instance, because there's a lot of objects getting in your way, especially if you really want to try to play for the game as in co-op mode. And obviously though, you can able to actually shoot those targets, so that way you can able to destroy them and let the other player just somehow manage to able to go through the level within a comfortable ease. So, and on top of all that stuff though, in regards to the forms of Super Monkey Ball Banana Splits sometimes, and that's mainly because no matter what though, I still happen exactly fully 100% everything in that game, just because, my goodness, certain stages are really tough, way more harder than the forms of how it does it on any other Super Monkey Ball games I ever played, including Banana Rumble. But that'll be a topic for another time, especially concerning for the fact that, as you can definitely tell, we somehow unlocked the final world in this game, which appears to be Ultra Heaven. Oh, that sounds familiar. But before we end off here, let me go ahead and tackle through the next crown stage, and I believe for this one, it's going to be involved around these little sliding tiles right here. So either way though, just somehow slits through left and right, and we have to make sure we don't able to hesitate, because otherwise if we dare fall off, well, thankfully though, this is only one crown stage, at least in each and every single stage varieties, as far as I'm aware. Although technically speaking, I was about the fact that each world does have 2 crown stages within a separate menu selection screen. So relatively speaking, I was about the fact that if you do mess up, you can able to actually pause the game and just try to exit, and as a result, you can able to do another attempt to try to able to obtain every single bananas to able to get ourselves our nice glorious crown. So yeah, that's pretty much about it for this world. So not too shabby right there. So I guess we should probably end things off this point right here. So join me next time for more Let's Play of Super Monkey Ball Sakura Edition. Is that we're going on to the 5th world, and that's what appears to be Ultra Heaven. And that might be familiar, because that's actually based off the World 10 from Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz. So yeah, I'll see you guys until tomorrow. Later, fellas.